Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call of supervisors, please?
This is your phone, Dan. Is that yours?
John. Thank you. Supervisor Gable's excused. At this time, we'll open the floor up to citizen comments. Any citizens wishing to speak, you have 5 minutes. Please step up to the podium. I would ask Mr. Veit to go first. Just state your name and address for the record, please. Excuse me 1 minute, please. Okay, go ahead, sir.
I live at 8721 2nd Avenue, Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. Thank you for the opportunity for me to be here. I'm here tonight to urge you to support the resolution calling for the Wisconsin Parole Commission to deny parole for Eric Nelson. In 1985, Eric Nelson killed my brother Joseph Veit. It was a cold-blooded murder, and our family hasn't been the same ever since. Over the years, our family has followed the parole process very closely. Hence, our surprise early last month when we learned that the Department of Corrections had moved Nelson to a minimum security pre-release facility. Eric Nelson is expected to have a parole hearing in May, and it's our strong belief for the safety of the community that he should remain behind bars. We know that lots of other people agree with that. A petition that we plan to give the Parole Commission has already garnered 2,600 signatures, and we're still counting. Actually, I have copies with me here if anybody else would like to sign. Our family appreciates the support of Supervisors Rodriguez and Gaschke, who sponsored the resolution that's on your agenda tonight. I ask you to please vote for it to help further send a message that Eric Nelson should stay behind bars. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizens' comments? Any citizens wishing to speak, please step to the podium. You have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Kevin Rano, 5621 First Street. This is Highway KR within the Phase 2 project. I'd like to thank the board for your patience with us during citizen comments. Along the way, we have encountered many issues that seem to leave room for improvement for this project or one in the future. The same is true of the other county, municipal, and DOT meetings that we have attended. County government is very wide-ranging, and no supervisor can be an expert in each field, whether it's law enforcement, public health, or transportation. Therefore, each board member needs to seek out information, be open to inputs, and is very dependent on advice from staff or a hired consultant. Some of you have become engaged with this project, and we sincerely appreciate your interest. We understand that ultimately there is no way to please everyone with your vote. Have you seen a map of the road you're voting for tonight? Here are a few of my observations for the Highway KR project. Do not reach a conclusion before you do your homework. There is often more than one right answer. When decisions have already been made, tell us. Don't say nothing's been decided and we're just collecting input that would be used to make decisions later. Have staff brief you earlier on the major issues and demand a variety of options to address them. Do not wait until the night of a vote to ask detailed questions. Require examples of the road options so you can drive them yourself. Never assume lightly the taking of private land for a public project. You don't know the feeling until it happens to you. Last Thursday night, you heard design supporting arguments from staff and the DOT. They offered opinions that the number of lanes, private land demands, speed limit, railroad bridges, bike path, truck turn radius, and scope were all required. When supervisors ask questions, they receive very defensive or condescending answers. You were told that you were not voting on the road design, just the plat. No alternatives were discussed, therefore the board had no options. This highway design has evolved from a 4-lane road into something that is not recognizable. At the narrowest point in the residential area, the pavement will be 90 feet from curb to curb due to the wide shoulders and paved median. This is the same as 7.5 lanes of traffic. It will be even wider at my house due to left and right turn lanes. Since prevailing winter winds blow snow from north to south, we are going to end up with 7.5 lanes of snow stacked at our curb. Some of my neighbors have no provision to turn around in their driveways, so they will need to back out onto the road while looking around the mountains of snow. When the 90 feet of road and the 10-foot shared use path, we get 100 feet of pavement. This will be placed in the 152-foot right-of-way. This should be much less. But this is small compared to elsewhere on the project. The environmental document states that the widest point of the right-of-way is 380 feet. Can you picture that? That's the full length of a football field plus the end zones and leaves enough extra room to do a Lambeau leap. Supervisors should expect or feel embarrassed and maybe a little angry when you discover that the information that staff and the DOT provided was closely rehearsed to control the message and is not consistent with other projects. Be aware that the majority of state-sponsored roads in the Foxconn project will be 35 miles per hour, not 45. There is a section of Highway H that will be only 66 feet wide and accommodate semi-truck turns to the UNFI warehouse and residential driveways across the street. The DOT has 4-lane designs at 35 miles per hour that exceed the projected KR capacity needs and is much smaller and requires less private land. Did your experts warn you that it's against state law to condemn private land for a bike lane or a pedestrian path? You are voting on the design, not just the plat. This is your only vote. Why won't there be a new bridge over the UP tracks at the Highway S project? You were just told this is a requirement. This is the same railroad bridge on KR that will remove houses, block views, and cast a giant shadow on our neighbors. Highway S has much more traffic than KR. If you are on private land and if you were on a private board and many similar customer complaints rose to your level, would you accept advice like this from your staff of experts? Is it deception, incompetence, or maybe doing as directed from above? You have a choice. You can vote no now and ask the DOT to downsize the design and lower the speed. After this vote, your work is not over. Please look after your residents. Make sure land acquisition is handled fairly with respect and honesty. Build into the road specs an option for each driveway to have a small slab added at no charge so no one has to back out onto the new road. Be responsive to citizens during the project. And lastly, to our neighbors, stay active, keep in touch. Legal advice, negotiations, and possible conflict are on the horizon. When you run into a problem, ask for help. Chances are others will have the same issue. We are very proud of you.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizens' comments? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Amy Maurer. I live at 257 Old Green Bay Road. I understand that I'm not being sworn in tonight until after this meeting due to the rules, so I want my opinion to go on the record in this portion. At this point in the discussion, my vote would be no. My constituents, the people that will directly be affected by this KR expansion, are largely accepting of this project and only have a few compromises that they would like to see. These compromises are not unreasonable. I understand that tonight you are voting on the plat plan and that the details can possibly be worked out later. I understand that my constituents' desired compromises possibly fall under the heading of these details. I've been told by DOT officials that many of these desired compromises will be met. However, whenever we contract with someone to accomplish an achieved goal, we put that in writing. When you have work done on your house, you get a quote in writing. It would behoove the people that I represent to have the agreed upon compromises put in writing, something that is not happening tonight under the plat plan vote. For these reasons, I would be voting no. If this vote were to be tabled tonight and the compromises put in writing, I would be more than open to voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kathy Dahl. I live at 101 56th Avenue, which is the corner of KR and 56th Avenue. Myself and my neighbors, as you all know, have been to many of these meetings in Racine and Kenosha. We have been respectful. We've asked very few things. We ask that the speed and the footprint of the new KR be reduced. After listening to men such as Ray Arbit, the Public Works, Clement Owangwa from the Highway Department, as well as David from the DOT and others, even the county executive, Jim Cruiser, they make a pretty convincing points, such as the design according to the traffic studies, or we need a wider median for turning. These are things I've heard. We are designing it for 75 years from now. I heard that one in Racine last night. And we will conduct, quote unquote, we will conduct a proper due diligence and required studies to determine the appropriate speed for the road after the road is in. That's not acceptable. I have also heard that only minimal footage would be needed on the Kenosha side. I heard that last week at the meeting downstairs. Minimal, well, I don't know what minimal means. It could mean two different things to you or to me. I have also not heard what will they do about the residents that live in the Kenosha side and their addresses are Racine because their mailboxes are on the Racine side. Anybody thought of that? How are they going to get their mail? So you can see why this might seem an easy decision for some of you because you've been told a lot of things, but you don't live on KR, and you'd be missing the point. The study should be done now, before, decisions made before anything is done. I strongly believe that the studies that were done to justify this expansive roadway were faulty, flawed, and exaggerated. Traffic was only studied for 13 hours by human counter. I have that in writing from the DOT. The railroads confirmed the number of trains were exaggerated by 50%. This is a residential area. You would be agreeing to let the DOT put 6 lanes through there. That 4 lanes of traffic, plus the 2 8-foot access, 22-foot median, 12-foot or 10-foot multi-use pass. This is a major highway designed for 60 miles per hour in front of our homes and totally unnecessary. If the road was designed for 35 miles per hour, like the voting, tax-paying residents are asking for, the footprint of the road would be substantially smaller. If you wait to do your due diligence study until after it's finished, it's too late. The damage will be done, and lives will be changed forever. As it is now, the 50 to 60 mile per hour which is designed for, is overkill, excessive, intrusive, and infringing on the quality of life for all who live on KR. Phase 2 was never in the plan in the beginning. It was added. And the next will be Phase 3, because they've already started it, because they're saying they have to go past 31 to bring it down. I don't know. They're just, to me, it was fast talk. This feels like a divide and conquer. Have any of you been out to see, after they stake the path, or put the stakes in on the Racine side to see how much of the homeowners' land will be taken? The road will be about 20 feet from their doorstep. They will be out of compliance of the new 75-foot setback. Therefore, if their house burns down, they cannot rebuild that spot. Also, the overhead railroad pass. Do you think it's okay for your residents to be looking at a wall the rest of their days? They moved to the county for a reason. Green space, not cement walls. The homeowners along KR have been tirelessly doing their due diligence. I could be home in my sweatpants right now. I worked all day. I went home, made dinner, but I came here because this is important. They've researched the facts. They've put their heart and soul, and they showed up at the meeting, sharing information at all the meetings in Racine and Kenosha counties to get the point across. Let us know that you've been listening. Postpone this decision until you know more. I am thankful for the willingness of some of the supervisors that took the time to talk to us and to listen to our concerns. But as far as having our own supervisor in our area, KR residents have had little or no representation in the 15th district. Maybe that was part of the plan all along. Our county board supervisor checked out months ago. From day one, every time we hear his name, he's gone. I talked to him Monday. He told me Amy would be sworn in before this meeting. My surprise, I get here, she's not sworn in, she cannot vote. Listen to your conscience. Don't just agree to this because you want to move on to another project. These are people's lives you are deciding on. Vote it as if it was your family's home on that road. All we want is a lower speed limit with a smaller footprint for the new KR and perhaps no railroad overpass in the residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Kathy DeVerney. I live at 5602 First Place in Kenosha. I won't belabor what everybody else has said. You've heard all of my comments before many times, and I apologize for all you people that are bored by us being here. I would first like to start to say thank you to those who stood up for us and asked some really important questions. Mike Skaliski, John Poole, Mark Nordigan, and Jeff Wamble. And I just want to call out a couple people that Mr. Cruiser, if you're here, you to my face said, we're working with the DOT and Kenosha County to make sure that we get a resolution that everybody can agree upon. Well, where is that resolution? Where are you now? You're not even here, are you? I don't see you. So, and you, Mr. Elverman, came up to us after a meeting and said, oh, geez, we didn't even know that there was public outcry on this. You guys need to attend these meetings. You need to go to this, you need to go to that, you need to go to that. As Kathy said, I could be sitting home in my sweatpants too, but I'm here and I've come to a whole bunch of these meetings, wasting my time for what? You guys had your decisions made a long time ago. I guess I just want to end with that I'm really disappointed with the representation, or shall I say the lack thereof, we've received from our county representatives. The public has been misdirected and lied to since the very first public input meeting. It's obvious that the motions are already etched in stone as a result of misinformation and lack of transparency.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Jane Powell, 9226 Court, Salem, but I am also one of the millers at 220 Old Green Bay Road. There's a lot of people affected here, and from the beginning, you know, we were told that Kenosha wouldn't be affected by the Foxconn project. Obviously, this whole KR expansion is a result of the the Foxconn project, but our family is losing about 6 acres to the road. It started out with 3.5, and then we go to a meeting a couple months ago, February, and we look at a map, and there's another 2.8 or 6 where they're putting retaining ponds on one of our supposedly $1 million corners that they told my dad the last time 31 cut through the farm. And it's frustrating because we don't know anything about it in advance. We don't know it till we see it on the map if we happen to come to the meetings. I know one of the concerns was that they thought maybe not all the millers agreed. I have 10 brothers and sisters. I'm number 7. I'm one of the 2 that live in Kenosha County. We've tried to attend everything that we've known about, but I've got, you know, brothers and sisters in Iowa and Arizona and Green Bay, Oconomowoc, all over. So for all of us to be here in the middle of the week at 7 o'clock is close to impossible. One of the things we're asking, I don't know what's going to happen with the road, but the southwest corner of KR and 31. We own everything from the other side of the creek, which is, we call it the creek, Pike River. We have 6 acres and it goes all the way to Old Green Bay Road. So we're affected on that whole line. And now they're putting 3 retaining ponds in on one of our best corners. My dad lived on that farm for 99 years. He died October of 2017 when he knew all of this was coming down. We all thought he'd live to be 100, but I really think this is part of what, you know, put an end to him pretty fast once this all started happening. One of the things we'd like you to consider is to buy our whole corner. It's pretty much destroyed when you put 3 retaining ponds on it and leave little land for even access. We have no access on 31. We have little access on KR. You know, of the land, there's like 22 acres there, quite a bit of it's wetlands, and something to consider is the environmental effect that might have on it. We could perhaps turn it into green space beside the aesthetic value. You know, green space, that type of area. It's wooded along the river, good for filtering pollution, which is going to be an awful lot of, it sounds like, with all the traffic on both KR and 31. So it can help stop erosion into Pike River as far as that goes, and preserve the wetlands that happen to be there. So I guess one of the things we ask is that we have some more involvement, as well as all these people, in whatever decision that you make. Everybody is being directly impacted by this whole thing, and it's very frustrating when we don't know what's going on.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Kim Mahoney, 10640 South Prairie View Drive in Mount Pleasant. You may recall that I live in Foxconn Area 1, just north of Highway KR. I attended the Public Works meeting last Tuesday, and Mr. Arbit and the DOT gave us a lot of information and answers. Finally, we've been asking for this information for months. Some of the explanations were very helpful, others almost laughable. I say almost because I know the impact this roadway will have on the residents in the area, and it's not funny at all. I have now been labeled a community activist. I never set out to be. 18 months ago, I was just a homeowner trying to defend my property from an illegal taking of eminent domain. I proved, and the Village of Mount Pleasant has acknowledged, that it cannot take my property using eminent domain. Instead of apologizing and offering to negotiate in good faith, I've received more threats that now they're going to build a chain link fence around my property. I'm not directly affected by the KR Phase 2 project. I'm only here as a community activist to support these residents and my neighbors. Unfortunately, I'm seeing the same high-handed behavior here in Kenosha County that has been taking place in Racine County. Certain elected officials are more concerned about their claim to fame as it relates to this big project and how it will impact residents they were elected to represent. And how stupid does Mr. Arbit think residents are? How dumb does he think you are? To tell us that they must increase the speed limit on KR because people will drive the speed the roadway allows rather than the posted speed limit. If that is actually true, then here's a thought. Have the DOT design a roadway that accommodates 35 to 40 miles per hour rather than 60 miles per hour. It just seems like common sense to me. There are plenty of roads around Racine and Kenosha that have 4 lanes that are designed for speeds of less than 40 miles per hour, which accommodate truck traffic. Stop proposing a road that is so wide that it encourages drivers to drive 60 miles per hour through a residential area. And to say that there have been many iterations of the plan and they have made concessions, that is great, but they have not addressed the 2 key concerns, which are the wide footprint and the speed. And some of the concessions they have made should have been included in the design in the first place, like the elimination of a raised median. Residents shouldn't have had to ask that they be able to pull into their driveways. So forgive me if it doesn't feel like Mr. Arbit has done the residents any favors. Look, many of you got into politics because you were facing an issue or there was one you did not agree with. I implore you to do the right thing here. Represent the interests of the residents and not your county executive and not Racine County and definitely not a wealthy foreign corporation. Send the KR plat back to the DOT and design a road that is appropriate for a residential area. Otherwise, please ask Mr. Cruiser to disclose the real reason behind this superhighway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other citizens' comments? Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Leslie Mai, 7820 County Line Road along KR. We are being told that some supervisors don't consider our homes along KR a neighborhood. We have no cul-de-sacs, no grid patterns of roads. However, anyone who believes that is 100% wrong. We are a neighborhood made up of good people joining hands across this road, the fine citizens of Kenosha and Racine counties. These people sitting behind me, your constituents, are not your problem, they're your responsibility. Time and again, they have come before you, not trying to stop the project, but simply asking for reasonable compromises for safety and home value. Yes, as Ray Arbit has said, a couple compromises were reached. The bike path was relocated from Kenosha to Racine County, and the 22-foot raised median was modified to a 22-foot turn lane. With all due respect, a raised median, limiting homeowners' full driveway access, should never have even been on the table. In response to our request for 35, the DOT refused to grant that, but instead simply increased the size of the shoulders from 4 feet to 8 feet. It should be noted, both compromises increased the land taken to our homes in Mount Pleasant. Here is some data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. That's a mouthful. 3 in 10 drivers are law-abiding and do not speed. 4 in 10 speed occasionally. 3 in 10 consistently drive 15 miles an hour over the speed limit all the time. Brett Wallace of the DOT told me last night they did a traffic study last week. Right now on KR, a road currently designed for 45 to 50, drivers are averaging 52. If you allow them to build a road designed for 60 through our neighborhood, 3 in 10 drivers will be doing 60 plus all the time. 4 in 10 will occasionally be going that fast. And I'm sorry, the DOT and Ray Arbit's logic of law-abiding drivers creating a hazard for lawbreakers is completely flawed and honestly ridiculous. Where is the law enforcement factor in this? For example, everyone knows that on 31, where it drops from 55 to 35 approaching 11, you had better slow down or you are going to get a ticket. There's your solution. And with the wider shoulders, they can be pulling them over right and left. More money for the county coffers. More concerning data from the NHTSA. 136 feet, 196 feet, 229 feet, and 304 feet. 136 feet is the distance to stop a normal vehicle at 35 miles per hour. 196 is at 45, 229 feet is at 50, and 304 feet, the length of a football field, is the stopping distance at 60. This is what Ray Arbit and the DOT are not telling you. These statistics are for dry pavement. Factors such as alcohol, texting, vehicles' size and weight, think semis here, significantly increase these numbers. Understand this, 7 out of 10 drivers will either always or occasionally be driving 60 plus coming down off that overpass into our neighborhood and taking a minimum of 304 feet to stop for a disabled vehicle or, heaven forbid, a stopped school bus full of children. With Mr. Cardinelli having moved on, these good people behind me, your constituents, have gone unrepresented in their district for the last few months. I urge you to vote no on this resolution and plat as proposed, and insist County Executive Cruiser direct the DOT to redesign the road in populated areas with a safe 35-mile-per-hour speed limit, a 14-foot turn lane, which is a DOT standard for roads of 40 or less. In closing, I would respectfully request that those of you that continue to support this project in its current form and vote yes, please look your constituents in the eye when you do so, as you are clearly sending them the message that their safety and lives, along with the safety and lives of their children and their grandchildren, are meaningless to you. And all just to save commuters literally seconds and to allow the county executives their high-speed alleged spur, AKA their legacy project. This is sad.
Ma'am, you need to wrap up, please.
And is truly shameful. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens' comments, anyone wishing to speak, please state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes.
My name is Esther Roberts. My address is 2775 11th Place, number 812, Kenosha, Wisconsin. The current plan to widen KR does not make sense for Kenosha County. This is a Racine County-driven project that mainly benefits Racine County due to their negligence in correctly planning for the future. Kenosha County already has many forms of quick access from I-94 to downtown. The current plans for the KR expansion are based on sheer speculation of need and not fact. Please listen to everyone who has spoken tonight. You all represent Kenosha County residents and have a duty to vote no on the current KR expansion plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
Penny Johansson, 272nd Avenue, Summers, Wisconsin. I live on the corner of KR and EA, so my property, like the Millers, is being very much affected by this road expansion. The widening of the EA intersection was voted on April 11th. The developer stated and designers stated that it'll cost you $100,000 to do it now or more later. I get that. I worked for the federal government in the comptroller's office. I know how the money works. I also know that 15 years, well, 16 years down the road from now, my property is still listed as farmland preservation. So unless there's somebody here that knows something that they're not telling us on the Summer side, no development on the Summer side is going to happen anytime soon without that infrastructure. You have to look at this, because there will be federal funds later on when this intersection warrants 5 lanes wide. It does not now. The traffic count doesn't warrant the width of that intersection to be that wide. You were also told at the April 11th meeting that the 5-lane footprint that was on that map was the same width that the previous map had 3 lanes on. That is virtually impossible. I have been through 54 meetings in the last year. The transparency is ridiculous. We have gone to Mount Pleasant, we've gone to Racine County, we've gone to the DOT meetings. I haven't seen too many of you there. I have seen a couple of the Summers trustees there and the village president there. It's also recently been brought to my attention that the county of Kenosha wants the village of Summers to have developers grant 120 feet of right-of-way on one side for a total of 240 feet for future road expansion. That is outrageous. That's bigger than the interstate is wide. There is no reason for that road to be that wide. You are affecting people's lives here. These are life-changing decisions that you're making tonight. And all we're doing is asking you to send them back to the drawing board, because their transparency has been literally nil with the residents there. I did not know until the April 11th meeting, when all of you saw the map there, that they were even going to be giving me egress on KR at all. I was told at every meeting prior there was no egress being allowed on KR. All of a sudden, that changed. That's great. That isn't going to help when you're trying to pull a tractor with the implements in to a field that there's a 6-lane highway you're coming off of, and cars are going to ram you in the rear end. And you know how much farm equipment costs? It's very expensive. The road is being blocked on my EA frontage, which I have 1,020 feet of frontage on EA, about 700 feet. Now, when this all came about, when they had the last map on the Mount Pleasant meeting at the DOT put out, they had the curve on the EA side. I screamed and yelled about it. I don't know how any of you don't know that there hasn't been any opposition from residents, because that is simply not true. I told them that I would go to every media outlet unless they flip that back over to the other side the way they originally had it in the first place, because there was no houses being affected on that side. Mount Pleasant already owns that property. So in turn, they flipped it back over there. Now they're taking 1.5 acres of my property. They're coming in 65 feet on the EA side and 112 feet on the KR side. That is ridiculous. The money will be there. If there is ever a chance or an opportunity for you people to let this stuff roll uphill to somebody else's lap, this is the opportunity. You need to be informed when you make this decision, and you have not gotten all the information from the DOT. What they're telling you is simply not true, because you know it from the last meeting on the 11th, because
Ma'am, you need to
you
wrap it up,
didn't even
please.
see the map until that night.
You're done with
I
your time.
thank you very much for your time, and I certainly hope that you will table this decision today and get the information so that you can make informed decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to speak? Any other citizen comments? Any other citizen comments? Seeing none, citizen comments are closed. Moving on. Announcements of the chairman. I have a few. I'd like to welcome Youth and Governance Chance Chisowski and Javier Retana. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Hopefully I didn't butcher your names that bad. If I do, I apologize. I want all supervisors to be aware of that. As they know, a new supervisor will be seated after our first meeting tonight and our organizational meeting after this meeting. Committee structures will change. You will probably be notified via email by the end of the week, beginning of next week, all the changes that will occur on the committee level will take place effective May meetings. And with that, that's all I have. Supervisor reports. Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that we approved 2 comprehensive maps for agenda items number 29 and 32, and those were approved, or certified survey maps, that's what it is, at the committee meeting we held, and those do not come before the county board, so I just wanted to make the board aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Boyd Frederick, you have the floor.
Just let everyone know, Judiciary and Law will be moving their meetings back to the first Wednesday of the month, so our next meeting will be Wednesday the 1st.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Supervisor Frederick. Supervisor Nudo, you have the floor.
Just a reminder that the legislative meeting was moved from tonight to next week, Tuesday night, 6 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other supervisor reports are closed. County Clerk.
New business, ordinance 29, from the Planning Development and Extension Education Committee, David B. Drizzle, owner, Leanne Drizzle, agent. Ordinance regarding a comprehensive plan amendment, Town of Paris. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Poole, yes. Nordigan, yes. Rodriguez, excused.
Thank you. Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
Move ordinance 29, please.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Decker and a second by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Decker.
This property is adjacent to 18002 60th Street in the town of Paris. The motion was passed in committee.
Thank you very much. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance passes.
Ordinance 30, from the Planning Development and Extension Education Committee, David B. Drizzle, owner, Leanne Drizzle, agent. Ordinance regarding a rezoning, Town of Paris. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Poole, yes. Nordigan, yes. Rodriguez, excused.
Thank you. Supervisor Decker.
Move ordinance 30.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Decker and a second by Supervisor Poole. Supervisor Decker.
This is the same as ordinance 29, the same property.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
just want to make sure.
Yep, sorry.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance passes.
Ordinance 31, from the Planning Development and Extension Education Committee, an ordinance regarding Lila J. Mullenbeck, Mullenbeck Trust owner, Mike and Lori Mullenbeck agent, comprehensive plan amendment in the town of Paris. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Poole, yes. Nordigan, yes. Rodriguez, excused.
Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
Move ordinance 31.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Decker and a second by Supervisor Nordigan. Supervisor Decker.
This property is adjacent to 20301 First Street in the town of Paris. The committee approved it at our last meeting.
Thank you very much. Seeing no discussion on this item, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance passes.
Ordinance 32, from the Planning Development and Extension Education Committee, an ordinance regarding Lila J. Mullenbeck, Mullenbeck Trust owner, Mike and Lori Mullenbeck agent, rezoning in the town of Paris. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Poole, yes. Nordigan, yes. Rodriguez, excused.
Thank you. Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
Move ordinance 32.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Decker and a second by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Decker.
This property is the same as ordinance 31, and the committee approved it in our meeting.
Thank you. Supervisor Gens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Supervisor Decker, the town of Paris approved all these correctly?
Correct.
I didn't hear that part, so thank you.
You bet. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance passes.
Resolution 85 from the Judiciary and Law Enforcement and Finance and Administration Committees, a resolution reclassification of the Administrative Program Coordinator E4 to a sworn lieutenant, NRSG. Judiciary and Law, Boyd Frederick, yes. Wamble, yes. Rodriguez, yes. Uhas, yes. Celebre, yes. Finance, Edmund. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Gens, yes. O'Day, yes. Kubicki, yes. Gable, excused. Wamble, yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Boyd Frederick, you have the floor.
Yes, move resolution 85.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Boyd Frederick and a second by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Frederick.
Yes, this is for the Lexipool project completion, which is consistent with policy updating, policy development, and monitoring case law changes. This needs to be a lieutenant because it would be someone who will be making policy changes as well. And they're looking for someone for that title.
Thank you, Supervisor Frederick. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Resolution 86 from the Finance and Administration Committee, Resolution 2018-2019 carryover and annual closeout. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Kubicki, yes. Wamble, yes. O'Day, yes. Gable, excused. Gens, yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Rose, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I would move the resolution before you.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Rose and a second by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Rose.
All right, thank you. This is a traditional resolution that annually comes before the county board. The reason for this resolution that in any given budget year we find that there are certain projects for one reason or another have not been completed by the end of that year. So the funds are then within this resolution to carry over to the following year, and so that the various projects can be supported. If you look at the resolution, it indicates at one of the attachments called 2018 General Fund Year-End Forecast. I think it is well to note that our general fund, the unassigned reserves as a percentage of general fund expenditure for this year is going to end up at 31%. That is an increase over last year of some 29.5%. So we're certainly going in the right direction. I bring this to your attention as well because there are some people who have said, well, that general fund keeps growing every year and that's not necessarily a positive thing. I disagree. We have found that in making our presentations to the bonding agencies that 31% is the typical percentage of AAA communities. Where we need to improve is to upgrade the per capita income here in Kenosha County to become a AAA community. Now, the bonding resolution, the resolution before you this evening is one that if you oppose and defeat it, what will happen to the money? And its round number is $500,000. It will go into this general fund. So instead of 31%, that will be increased by another $500,000, that percentage increased. I point that out in the event that some of you think that by defeating the resolution, you will be somehow accomplishing anything other than increasing the general fund. Now, what are the projects that are listed here? And I think they're worthy projects, ones that we have supported in the prior year's budget, and some of them worth noting. We're carrying over funds, for example, for Brookside. If you support Brookside, if you serve on the board of directors, board of trustees, we're going to purchase some chairs for staff, cork boards, and overbed tables. What's an overbed table? Well, if you're a resident there and you're unable to get to the dining room table, you put your food on this bed table. Some would say that's essential. What happens if you don't have that? Well, it sits on your lap. I think that's worthy in this resolution. There's a carpet cleaner for Brookside. There's annual resident TV replacements. Sheriff's Department. There's some equipment that they need to purchase, as they do every year, automobiles and other things for the deputies. That's what's in this budget resolution, carryover. You look at our capital budget for computer hardware. Both the public safety building hardware and software capital projects are being finished. We're carrying that over for some of that, for that purpose. Downtown, we have purchased over the years a number of properties, demolished those properties, so that the county has control for future expansion over this campus and maintains the integrity of the area. There is money in this budget, over $200,000 carryover money for that purpose. These are some of the projects that are going to be carried over. There are more listed here at page 3 of the attachment. I invite your scrutiny of those, but the committee felt that these were all worthy, that they should be carried over. The project's completed, and we urge your support this evening.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Discussion. Supervisor Nudo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Rose pretty much, or actually not pretty much, he did express everything that is in this resolution. One of the things that I want to talk about it is there is also a passenger van for Brookside. As a member of the Board of Trustees at Brookside, we've been discussing the need of a van for a long, long time. It's unanimously from the Board of Trustees, the staff of Brookside, that we really need this year. And if for no other reason, I would urge everybody to support this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Skalitsky, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Either the chairman of the Finance Committee or even the Director of Finance could explain why these funds, if they're not carried over, would default into the general fund.
Through the chair. Go ahead. One second. Moving too fast. Supervisor Rose, if you can answer that question.
Well, those are the rules. If the money is not spent, it defaults into the general fund. So if it goes into the general fund, for example, and you have some other purpose, you would have to amend the budget requiring a 2/3 vote.
Okay, fair enough. Although the objective of a AAA rated county is a noble one, this general fund just continues to grow. And when I've asked the question of how much that actually would save us in lending costs, it was a fairly inconsequential amount of money. Now, I think I remember somewhere around $100,000 on our usual bonding, but please don't hold me to that, which in the grand scheme is not a small amount of money, but when you're borrowing $15, $20, $25 million, it is not very substantial. In the meantime, we could be taking some of that money and either paying down long-term debt or applying it to next year's levy, but we choose not to do that. Now, the reason that I am mixed about this particular resolution is because it looks to me like it was, we have some extra money, so departments, put together your wish list that you would like to see some things that you could spend on. And I don't believe that they're all needs. Some are needs, some are wants. Many times we spend the taxpayers' money on wants and not always on needs. What I would prefer to have seen is some of this, or this broken down into maybe 2 or 3 or 4 resolutions that were more specific to the areas that this money was going to be spent on, rather than just roll it into one resolution. So you're either forced to support it completely, or if there's portions you don't support, then you vote against it, and even though you would want to support some. So what I would like to make a motion on is to have this resolution amended and broken into the various departmental expenditures as an individual resolution, and then brought before us as the total board.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion? There is a second to that motion. So I'm going to clear the board. We are going to have discussion on the amended motion. I would like the finance administration or the finance director to come up and give us some insight on if this is possible, what happens, because I don't think we have a clear understanding. Yes,
I would like to have an opinion here, a viewpoint of the Corporation Council as to breaking the resolution down into a number of resolutions. The resolution is a carryover resolution, carrying over X number of dollars, round numbers $500,000, that we are spending here on various items. If I would think that the proper way to do this, what Mr. Skolitsky is suggesting, is that you delete an item. For example, you don't want the Sheriff's Department items, or you don't want the Brooks items I've mentioned. You move to delete that item. Therefore, if that passes, that amount of money defaults into the general fund. These are all items that have been previously passed by this board. It's not a new wish list we've come up with to spend $500,000. These are items that have been passed by the board but not completed. So I think this is more of a legal question than, and I'm certainly not trying to cut our director off, but I think that would be the proper way of doing it. If Mr. Skolitsky wants to say, eliminate sheriff's equipment, it passes, money defaults to the general fund. We don't divide it up into umpteen resolutions. We have one resolution called a carryover resolution, and I think that's the legal answer. Okay. But I defer to Corporation Counsel for his view if he could.
I will also defer to Corporation Counsel on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It certainly has been the practice as far back as I've been aware to do this as one resolution. As Supervisor Rose has indicated, these are not new matters. These are not matters that have been created for purposes of spending monies. These are all items that have been previously approved by the board as part of the budget. But as Supervisor Rose commented just now and in his introduction to this resolution, for whatever reason were not completed or were not spent in the 2018 calendar year. From a practical standpoint, I would have to defer to the finance director in terms of whether or not it would even be feasible on the fly to try and divide this into multiple resolutions. But certainly that has not been the practice, and I would agree that it seems that if there are particular items that are objectionable, it would be more appropriate to delete those rather than try and break this up into multiple resolutions.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask the opinion of our Finance Director, Patty Merrill. If you could shed some light on this, please.
I would also, I don't believe that it's proper to break it into resolutions on the board floor. That work is usually done at the committee level. I will point out that there is a time sensitivity to this resolution. If the resolution does not pass, we cannot close the books for 2018, and the auditors are due to be here the week of May 6th. So if there's more work to be done on this, I would request that the chair of the Finance and Administration Committee schedule a special meeting, either later this week or early next week, to do whatever work needs to be done, and that a special board meeting be scheduled before the end of April to give us time to create the financial statements that the auditors will need to audit. If they do not come the week of May 6th, outside of the fact that they have a schedule that they need to meet, we will not have the reports that we need to file on a timely basis, which could put the county not in compliance. So if it's kicked back to committee, some direction on exactly what needs to happen Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to continue discussion on this motion. Supervisor Nordigan, you have the floor.
I just have a question about carryover in general. Are all the monies from
So through the chair, am I correct? You want to know through the chair to the finance director? Is that?
No.
That's
I
your
think
question,
mine's going to be for Supervisor Rose.
Okay. And state what you need, what you mean, sir. Through the chair to the chairman of the committee, correct? That's what you want?
Yes. Okay. The carryover, is that all monies that weren't spent on projects that haven't been completed?
That is correct.
So then in 2020, we're going to have to then budget for all of these extra monies to complete those projects, it sounds like.
No, well, if you don't pass the resolution, or you
I'm just looking for
eliminate
information.
items, the money defers to the general fund. You then have it's up to you in the next budget whether you want to have these various Brookside items that have been mentioned. So you're at a fresh start, not necessarily that we do or we don't. It depends what goes into the budget.
But the monies that we have carrying over went into budget for very specific items that haven't been completed.
That is correct.
We're going to spend the carryover on items that are not in the budget, and then we've got to come back next year and then budget for the items that we originally had budgeted for 2019 to finish in 2020. That's correct?
Yeah, theoretically, unless you're opposed to finishing the project, that's another option.
I just may be opposed to double spending money that was budgeted.
Mr. Chairman, this is not, we're not double spending money.
No.
What this is we've allocated money for certain projects. We don't have to redo money, the money's there. What Supervisor Rose is saying and going around your question is, if you don't support this resolution, you'll have to rebudget and finish off the projects. Okay, but right now we haven't under budgeted anything. If this passes and we carry it over, we have enough money to finish the projects. I just want to make that clear. I don't know if that was your question, but the only way we're going to have to rebudget things to finish projects is if this stuff is voted no, we get a kickback into the general fund. Then we've got all these unfinished projects. So that's where we would need to rebudget to finish. But if we vote yes on the resolution, the money's all there. We're not rebudgeting any money. We have enough money to finish the projects. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, this is just unspent money because the project previously appropriated was not finished in 2018.
2018?
19.
So I just want a clear understanding. That's all I'm looking for. So the budgeted items will get spent no matter what was allocated. And because it hasn't been spent this year, doesn't mean that the money isn't there for next year already.
Well, yes, that is correct. The money would be in the general fund, and if they were brought back in the forthcoming budget, that would be a new budget item.
Okay.
Anything else?
You could be taxing the people twice for the same thing, but the money, that is true. You could be taxing people twice for the same money if you didn't withdraw it from the general fund to put it in the forthcoming budget. That's the only way you would be taxing them once. It's a good point.
Okay. So just for a point of clarification, we'll have the finance director. Patty, can you shed some light on this, please? There seems to be some confusion, and this is going in all different directions. Maybe you can point us in the right direction, please.
There is no double taxation. There were funds for projects that were not completed in 18 that we want to carry to 19 to complete those projects. It's not, we're not taxing again. If that doesn't happen, the projects may not be completed. The funds would default, as Supervisor Rose said, to the general fund, but we don't have the authorization to spend them in 19 without you passing the resolution to say, okay, finish the project, or use these funds. In the case of some of the Brookside things, they had surplus funds from something they want to repurpose to be used for something else in 19. If that doesn't happen, yeah, in 20 they may have a request to do that, and that might be part of their budget.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Norgan, you're
I'm good
with that? Okay. Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
I'm looking at the health insurance information. Now, 2018, it says the fund internal service fund adopted budget was $23,537,081. And then you go over and it says the deficit is $1,406,950. Is that we under budgeted that much? Through the chair to the chair of the committee, or?
We're kind of getting off the course here, people.
Well, the reason...
Hold on 1 second, please, Supervisor. We are discussing a motion made by Supervisor Skalitsky to break apart a carryover budget. We're not going through the budget line by line tonight. This is not what we're doing. So I appreciate your question. Finance Director, please come up and answer it for Supervisor Decker. But we're not going to get on a tangent here.
The reason why I ask this is because we're being told that this is funds for projects that we budgeted. Well, I'm looking at budgeted amounts and it doesn't add up. So this is not, health insurance is not a project. And it looks like we didn't budget it correctly.
Okay. We'll have the Budget Director, Barnabench, come up.
This page within the resolution is there for informational purposes only, and it is used there. It is used for documentation of showing how the health insurance did for 2018. So it has nothing to do with the monies being requested to carry it over.
But in the resolution, doesn't it talk about for health insurance? In the title of the resolution?
Oh.
Or in the wording in the resolution?
There is a budget modification requested for a budgetary overdraft in the amount of $346,000.
For health insurance?
For health insurance, correct.
So could you please explain why that's there?
That's there because based on taking into account revenues that we received as a result of more health insurance and other budget surpluses, that is the amount that we need as a housekeeping matter to make sure that we're in compliance with our budget to increase the overall medical insurance line item. That's something that we do on an annual basis. It's nothing new.
So our health insurance, what we budgeted was per our budget was $1.4 million under, or we spent $1.4 million over, but because we do T-based budgeting, we used funds from other accounts, overages, or extra money to reduce it down to negative $376,198?
Correct.
Okay. So that's not a project. That's, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Alderman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would, not from experience, not from seeing a lot of these budgets, that wouldn't be the reason. The reason I think that I would vote against this would be the transparency is allowed if you read all the paperwork. Nothing is hidden in here. You can look at this carryover resolution and read every item. To break it into each item, single resolution would be no more transparent than the resolution is right now. If a supervisor, as someone here suggested, cared to, they could make a motion at the Finance Committee or this evening to take a certain item out of there, but to go to any committee and then back to the county board with 26 different resolutions, but no more transparency would be done there than the way we do it now. This is very clear and very simple to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Skalitsky.
Just as a, thank you, Mr. Chair. As a point of clarity, I see there are capital projects and then of course there is not. So is this a mixture of bond money as well as just tax levy? So
yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Okay, and I understand the complexity and the clarity that everybody is put forth here, and perhaps this is something that I'll keep under advisement for next year. But to try to I don't see a lot of detail here, so I'm not in a position to say this or that should be removed. So I will withdraw my motion.
Maker of motion, do I have a second for withdrawal? Second? Yep, the portion that's second withdrawal. So the motion is withdrawn, and right now I'm going to clear the board. We're going to be back on discussion of the regular resolution. Supervisor Rolls.
All right, there's another part to this resolution that I think Supervisor Decker brought out that perhaps needs a little more explanation here. If you look at page 2 of the resolution, the next to the last clause says that the countywide non-departmental budget for 2018, that the medical insurance expenditure be amended per the attached budget modification. So that is not the list of items for Brookside, Sheriff's Department, etc. That goes to page 1 of the General Fund year-end forecast. And there you'll see that there are certain items which caused an increase to the General Fund. As we have talked about many times, the tax delinquencies, Human Services Institute placements, sales tax, better than expected. I won't read them all, but you can see where those are the positives causing an increase to the general fund. Now the next section has to do with what Supervisor Decker was talking about. There are certain things that have caused a decrease to the general fund, and they are listed there, and one of them constitutes this health insurance deficit. Was there insufficient funds there to meet that? Yes, there were insufficient funds. And what's the answer to why there was insufficient funds? It's because there was a 25% increase in prescription drugs. We spent 25% more than we anticipated. Came in with a figure for prescription drugs we thought was accurate. It wasn't accurate, as this is a nationwide issue of the cost of prescription drugs. We're addressing that in this budget. Fortunately, we had more items causing an increase to the fund than a decrease. And this is one where we have a deficit, and it's because of the prescription drugs. How are we trying to address that? Well, the administration here has contracted with a new pharmacy benefit manager. And to date, it's been working. In 2019, we've seen about $500,000 reduction instead of an increase in prescription drugs costs. So that we're hopeful that at the end of the year, that will pay off and that reduction will continue. And we won't have this prescription drug increase as we did not anticipate in the first place. So I think that's the answer to the health insurance issue.
Thank you. Seeing no more discussion on this resolution, this is a 2/3 vote, so we will take a roll call in regards to it. Yes, if you're in favor of the resolution, no if you're not. Supervisor Noodle? Resolution passes 20-1. Moving on.
Resolution 83 from the Planning Development and Extension Education Committee, David B. Drizzle, owner, Leanne Drizzle, agent. A resolution regarding a comprehensive plan amendment, Town of Paris. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Poole, yes. Nordigan, yes. Rodriguez, excused.
Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
Move, sorry, was it resolution?
Resolution 87.
Oh, sorry. Move resolution 87.
Thank you very much. I have a motion by Supervisor Decker, a second by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Decker.
This resolution is the same as numbers 29 and 30, and the Town of Paris approved the request.
Thank you very much. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Resolution 88 from the Planning Development and Extension Education Committee, a resolution regarding Lila J. Mullenbeck Trust Owner, Mike and Lori Mullenbeck Agent, Comprehensive Plan Amendment, Tax Parcel Number 45-4-221-333-0201, Town of Paris. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Poole, yes. Nordigan, yes. Rodriguez, excused.
Supervisor Decker?
Move Resolution 88.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Decker, second by Supervisor Poole. Supervisor Decker.
This is the same property as ordinances 31 and 32. The Town of Paris recommended approval of the request.
Thank you very much. Seeing no discussion on this item, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Resolution 89 from the Public Works and Facilities and Finance and Administration Committees, a resolution authorizing Director of Parks to apply for grant funding from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources relative to the Katy Park. Public Works, Elverman, yes. Franco, yes. Poole, yes. Cardinal, excused. Nordigan, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Uhas, yes. Finance, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Gens, yes. Kubicki, yes. O'Day, yes. Gable, excused. Wamble, yes.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Elverman, you have the floor.
I would move Resolution 89.
Thank you very much. I have a motion by Supervisor Elverman, second by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Elverman.
The Highway Katy Park, naturally, I've reported on that for years, and the majority of the work that we've accomplished there has been done through well-done grant applications, savings that we've done to match grants, and the work of our parks staff. So I think it's approximately 6 years ago now, we acquired another piece to that puzzle to the west of the existing Katy Parkland. We acquired another approximately 110 acres. We then moved our parks operation and our staff to a existing building there and operate our maintenance people out of that piece of property. With the addition of that land and with the trails, multi-purpose trails, multi-use trails that we've done in the park, we naturally want to add that 110 acres so that the people can positively utilize it. So we have one entranceway on the east side of that park on Highway KD, and the plans call for entryway parking addition on the south side of that piece of property. So this resolution, I know it's a long story, but this resolution allows the head of the department to apply for grants that would accomplish that goal in 2020. If we do not receive the grant, naturally, we don't spend any money. These green space grants that we've gotten and for boat launches and things are a 50% match. If we do receive the grant, we take that money out of the our parks and open space funds, money that is acquired through Pheasant Run landfill, money that is has been earmarked for this type of work. So there's no money being spent this evening. I'm asking for permission to apply.
Thank you, Supervisor Elverman. Seeing no discussion on this resolution, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Resolution 90 from Public Works, Facilities, and Finance Administration Committees, a resolution authorizing a relocation order for County Highway KR project number 3763-00-04-KC. Public Works, Elverman, yes. Franco, yes. Esposito, yes. Skalitsky, no. Uhas, yes. Nordigan, no. Poole, no. Finance Admin, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Gable, excused. Wamble, no. Gens, yes. Kubicki, yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Rose, you have the floor.
I would move the resolution.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Rose and a second by Supervisor Elverman. Supervisor Rose.
This has been debated in the committee. The committee adopted the resolution. We believe that it is in the best interest of the constituents of Kenosha County for the purposes of economic development. The way I look upon this KR project is that its future is very comparable to Highway 165. 165 was at one time a rural farming area. It has developed into the premier industrial economic development for Kenosha County and has spurred all kinds of growth. Whether Foxconn develops as originally anticipated is still to be determined. But I believe that this will spur economic development. The people that I represent in the 2nd District, which is located close to the lake, and the lakefront are in favor of economic development. My vote has to go for economic development in support of those constituents who believe that our taxes are high and this will help lower taxes. They believe that the per capita income must be increased in this area. And that's one of the things that we have certainly learned when we have been presented our case to the bonding agencies. Our per capita income in this area is too low. I believe that the development of KR will increase economic development as well as increase the per capita income of our constituents, and that's a benefit to us all. So I view this as very comparable to the future of this community, and it will look very similar to 165. What we're voting on this evening is the plat, and I understand the idea of a lower speed limit, and we on many occasions address the issue of speed limit. A study is made, the highway commissioner makes that presentation to us, and the public works supervisor of the committee, chairman of the committee, makes that presentation. I don't recall any time that we have opposed either the increase in the speed limit or the decrease in the speed limit based upon a study. We build the road first, we do the study second, and then we decide what the speed limit should be. I've never heard of a situation, and none has ever been presented to this board, where we first decide what the speed limit is going to be without any traffic studies, without knowing the situation, without having a study done, and then we decide to build the road. The argument has been made somehow that we are going to have some sort of leverage here in the design of this roadway. A good presentation was made to the Finance and Public Works Committee joint meeting very recently, and the plat looked good. And that's what we are voting on this evening. It may very well be correct in what the speed limit should be, but this is not the time to be dealing with that issue or dealing with those kind of details. This board is not charged with the responsibility of designing the roadway. If we postpone this resolution tonight, I doubt very much there will be any supervisor meeting with the engineers this week, and we'll be pulling out our slide rules and coming up with alternative ideas. We leave that up to the experts here. The question before us this evening is, are you in favor of this kind of economic development? If you're not, then you vote no. And secondly, is this the plat that you want for this particular area? If you don't want that area to be designed, you want it to stop at some other location and just have the road that we have there now. After all, there is a road there now. I suppose you can vote against it. But that doesn't seem to make too much sense when the experts here are telling us that this is the way to go. I can understand why the people who are living out there, their life is going to change. I understand that. And that was the same argument that was made when 165 was being developed. And that was probably the very same argument that was made on all of that kind of very positive development that we see in Pleasant Prairie. I doubt that there would be many today who would say that that's bad development. Well, this is the comparable to Pleasant Prairie. And if you like what you see there, I think you ought to vote what you see now. We are at a crossroads here. We're at one of those kinds of crossroads which is time-changing. And I would agree with the woman who said this is going to be time-changing for the future. I'm going to cast my vote for the future because I think that the kind of economic development that we've seen in this community is the kind of economic development that we ought to endorse for the northern end of this community and capitalize on it. I don't view this as a road to Foxconn, but I do view this as a road not only to Foxconn, but to the many other kinds of businesses that we will see in the future, and that we will return to this evening and look upon it as one where we decided very positively for this community as a whole. I believe that's what my constituents in the 2nd District want, and that's why I'm going to endorse it this evening. And I think that's why the Finance Committee has, and the joint meeting with Public Works endorsed it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Obviously, discussion. Supervisor Nudo.
Thank you. There has been a lot of discussion on this issue over the last couple of months. So it's a very important vote. I'm not going to talk about the benefits or the pros, the cons of this project tonight. The only thing I want to say is the 15th District supervisor, elected supervisors, was able to speak as a citizen. However, I believe we should show the courtesy to ever take an official vote and postpone this for the next meeting on May 7th. I did speak to people from the DOT and Public Works, and I don't believe the extension or to move it to May 7th meeting is going to affect anything. I could be ready to vote on it tonight. However, if I was in the same position, this was in my district, and I was to be sworn in a few hours from now, I would expect the courtesy from my fellow supervisor to wait for that. For that reason, I'm going to make a motion to table this for the time to May 7th. I believe the next meeting is May 7th.
Okay, there's been a motion to table it in a second, and with all due respect, Supervisor Nudo, you're out of order, and I will defer to Corporation Counsel in regards to your table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From Robert's Rules, it is out of order to move to lay a pending question on the table if there is evidently no other matter requiring immediate attention. The proper use of the motion to table is for a brief delay when something of immediate urgency has arisen or something else needs to be addressed before consideration of the pending question.
So with that being said, due to our rules, Robert rules, that motion is out of order. So I'm going to clear the board, and if anybody wants to continue discussion on the KR, we will do so. Supervisor Nudo.
Okay, well, if that was out of order, maybe I might be out of order again. But then I would like to make a motion to table to May 7th to get more informations on the speed limit and the overpass.
Again, with all due respect, I still believe you're out of motion, and I will, out of order. I will defer that to Corporation Counsel.
Again, the motion to table is out of order if there's evidently no matter requiring immediate attention.
So again, we're back on the discussion. I'm going to clear the board on the resolution in front of us on KR.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Can, through you to Corp Counsel, can you further explain
Should have his mic on.
something that needs immediate attention?
The proper use of the motion to table is a situation where, for example, an item can't be addressed at the moment it's on the agenda because a individual who needs to be present to discuss it isn't available, because some other item needs to be taken up immediately for other reasons, etc.
So, when this was tabled in the Public Works Committee, and then in the following meeting, it was a joint meeting, is it through the chair to the chair of Public Works, what was the reasoning to table at that point? I was not in attendance of that meeting, but I do know it was tabled. And it was my understanding that was to gather more information and to revisit it.
We had people at that meeting that didn't want to vote on it that night, and they made a motion to table it. And I didn't have a corporation counsel there, so they voted it and we tabled it.
Thank you.
All right. I am going to clear the board. That motion is out of order. We are now going to continue to discuss the motion in front of us on KR. And let the record show, I have no problem letting the supervisor-elect, if she would like to write a letter to make her position known to the county clerk, I will present it in as part of the record of the minutes of this meeting. Supervisor Nordigan, you have the floor.
Yeah, the Highway 165 came up, and I guess I'm glad it did. Highway 165 in the park, which I work at, is nowhere near as wide as what they're proposing here. Nowhere near as wide. And yet it's perfectly adequate for the cars and the trucks. There's a lot of truck traffic there every day, a lot of cars going through as well. Spur to I-94 all the way down to you name it. So I would say that I'm not against at all the economic development. I'm very much for it. If we can make this road smaller, that's less takings, it's less cost. And I would say it's a very good example of Highway 165, because that is exactly what I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nordigan. Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to refer this resolution back to committee, the Public Works Committee, in order to wait for the new supervisor to be seated, number one, and number two, so we can hear about what Racine County and the meeting between the DOT and the residents, how that goes.
I have a motion on the floor to refer it back to committee in a second. Again, I would have to say, with all due respect, you're out of order, and I'm going to tell you why. A referral back to committee, so everybody understands, tonight is our last meeting, and we adjourn Sendai, so all our business has to be completed tonight. As we adjourn Sendai, this is out of order because we cannot take it up on our next year of business. We are closing out a year of business tonight, and with that being said, that's why it is out of order. If we would move forward with this, we would have to start the process all over. So it would go through committee, it would go through Public Works and Finance, so it would be taken up in the new year. So I will confirm that with legal counsel.
Yes, the new board meeting, yes.
Correct. So am I correct in the out of order?
Yes, I don't believe that we can, I believe that the effect of referring it back to committee would be essentially to kill it. We would have to start over from the beginning of the process.
Okay, so with that being said, your motion is out of order. I am going to clear the board, and we are going to discuss care if anybody else has any discussion in regards to the motion, the resolution that is before us right now. Supervisor Sklitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we've heard from the constituents that are directly impacted by the proposed roadway, what they're simply asking for is a compromise. They were being asked, or they've asked to be listened to, because their lives are the ones that are being impacted here. Voting against this resolution has nothing to do with voting against economic prosperity. That's just foolishness. It's simply saying We respect the wishes of these constituents, and they may not be yours, and they're not even mine. But I do respect their plight, and that is, they've even said they're not against this road. They're against the size of it. They're against some of the proposed design attributes. They've asked for a slowdown of the process, and now that I can see why this was hurried through the committees and put on tonight's agenda so that it can be completed this year and it couldn't be referred back to committee. It's unfortunate. I don't think anybody in this chamber is against the economic prosperity for Kenosha County and the economic prosperity which will come from this project being what is Foxconn. However, I have put myself in these constituents' shoes, and it is a big impact on their life. It is not fair to use 165 as a direct comparison, because as soon as you hit a residential area, it goes down to 2 lanes. That's at Highway 31. These people live west of 31, and they're simply asking for a compromise that will not completely devalue their property and lead to a situation literally almost to a public safety issue, and that has to do with the size, scope, and speed limit of this road. I know that if I was living there, I would want the same thing. And they have come here repeatedly and pled with this board to listen to them. And I realize that there's a desire to have this completed in its grandiose original fashion. But that's not practical, and it's not fair to these constituents. It can be 4 lanes, but we need to listen to our constituents and the taxpayers of Kenosha County and what they need and what they want. Yes, there are times where we need to override that, but this is not one of them. We tried to slow down this process. We tried to put it off for a few weeks because 2 weeks in a 3-year project is irrelevant. That's not even a rounding error. Yet it had to get pushed forward. And I realize there are some other implications, such as the high-pressure gas line and other things that are coming into play. But our discussions with the DOT resulted in the fact that this could all very easily be aligned just by delaying a few weeks. And I realize that this is the plat. And there's a perception that we don't have any leverage. Maybe true, but we do have a responsibility, and we have a responsibility to listen to these people. I'm all for the Foxconn project, and I always have been. I'm all for the KR expansion, phase 1. And even there, we've heard from a few of my constituents that have worked at the DOT, and they're taking into account some of their concerns. But in phase 2, it's not fair to just ramrod this thing down their throat. You guys aren't the ones that are living there, but you do have to live with your vote. So I would ask, apparently we can't delay this thing, which is really unfortunate. So I'll have to vote no. And hopefully the process will start over and will give us those couple extra weeks of time so that we can get the plans more solidified, make sure these constituents are listened to, and yet we still meet the desired transportation needs for this area in Kenosha County. So I hope that you look and put yourself in their shoes, use the empathy that's required, and vote against this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Sklitsky. Supervisor Boyd Frederick, you have the floor.
2 years ago, we were talking about Foxconn. We, all but 3 people, 2 of which are not even on this board anymore, all voted yes for Foxconn and Wisconn Valley. And people were talking about how transformative it would be to the area around there. This is what those people meant. And unfortunately, the people that all voted yes, unfortunately now this is what they were talking about, is what is happening on Highway KR. Now this highway is coming in, and this is Wisconsin Valley. This is going to be the industrial area like 165. So when it was supported by a lot of people in this chamber at that time, this is now Wisconsin Valley. So with Foxconn and what other businesses are going to be going in, it was supported by a lot of us in here. This is now what we voted on 2 years ago. This is now coming to fruition.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Boyd-Frederick. Supervisor Rose.
Let's not lose sight of the fact that we're voting on the plat this evening. We're not voting on the speed limit or the intersection design. If you want to amend the plat, present the resolution as an amendment to this resolution this evening. But if you don't want to make that amendment to the plat, then I think that you've got to vote yes in favor of this, unless you're just completely against the economic development of that area and you want to maintain the rural or suburban characteristics as is. That's what I heard some of the speakers this evening infer, is that they really prefer it the way it is. But if you're in support of the idea of the plat here that's been presented to the committees and endorsed by one of those committees, the Finance Committee, and presented to you this evening, and you don't choose to amend it, I think your vote has to be yes.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Rodriguez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, this is a conflicting vote for myself, seeing that I am a city supervisor, as are some others in the room tonight. In a project of this scope, I don't think any of us in the city will foresee in our districts. However, we want to go back some time to when we voted to approve Aerial Adventure Park in Bristol Woods. My main issue with that was my constituents at the time had concerns that I was unable to address due to lack of information that I had received. And I stated that night that if it was my choice and I was voting solely on the interest of myself, I would vote in favor of it. And if I was voting solely on the interest of myself tonight with Highway KR, I would vote in favor of it. But to the supervisor who represents part of KR and to the supervisor-elect who is unable to vote on this tonight, we've heard their concerns. We've heard the concerns of constituents who live on KR, and they do not have the information that they are asking for. I was told by the county executive today that there's an informational meeting, I believe, being held on Thursday, where the state is going to hopefully better explain to these residents what is going on and additional compromises that they've made. But nevertheless, they don't have that information tonight. I'm sure not everyone in this room has all that information tonight. And to go off of what Supervisor Rose had stated, I completely agree with you on the economic development and the interest this county has by redeveloping, rather, Highway KR. However, the state has not shown us a plat where they say, okay, you know what, you guys have been asking for a lower speed limit, a smaller footprint, here's an alternative. And I don't know about anybody else in this room who's been elected to this chamber. I am not an engineer in that aspect, or in any aspect, really. So now if the state had come to us and said, look, this is what the residents want, this is what some of you guys had wanted, here's two different plats, I would have very much appreciated that, but I just don't think it's realistic in this instance to offer an amendment when none of us are civil engineers that this project requires. So for that reason, and for the people sitting behind us tonight, even though I do not represent them, and most of us do not represent them, and some of them are Racine County constituents, they're people, and these are their homes, and for that reason I'll be voting against it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make this body clear of one thing. Supervisor-elect Mauer was not seated due to any other reason other than the process of law, okay? Everybody needs to understand that supervisors are stating that they want Supervisor Supervisor-elect Mauer to have a voice, and I truly agree with that. But this is the law of elections, in canvassing, and so on and so forth. So I want to make sure everybody in this chamber understands that, okay? This is why she's not voting tonight. She is given the latitude like any other elected official as far as being sworn in, okay? And the reality is, if the supervisor didn't have an unfortunate incident in District 15, God rest his soul, we wouldn't even be here discussing this tonight, okay? So there's been situations over the last year that are precedented in these chambers as far as 2 county board supervisors coming from District 15. So this is no other reason because other than this is the letter of the law, and I want everybody to understand that going forward, okay? Thank you. Supervisor Decker.
I have a question. I'm looking at the packet that I downloaded, and my packet is missing some information on this resolution. In my packet that I downloaded off the website just an hour before I got here, the last lines that I read, it says that, number 2, that it is necessary in a public purpose to acquire the property interest in accordance with. That's it. Can I get more information that's following this resolution?
Yes, you may. So through the chair to Supervisor Alderman, can you address Supervisor Decker's question or concern, please?
Number 2, that it's necessary in public purpose to acquire the property interest in accordance with the relocation order attached as Exhibit A and the plat attached as Exhibit B in order to accomplish the improvement of a portion of County KR. A copy of the relocation order and plat shall be filed with the Kenosha County Clerk within 20 days after issue.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Supervisor Alderman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of things. I think a lot has been said. I've certainly attended many briefings and many meetings on this issue. I have had personal experience with relocation in a family matter years ago, and also dealt with others being on the county board here. It's not a pleasant situation. Supervisor Rose did a very good job of explaining the situation, going over the resolution. We have a history here in Kenosha County of not reacting and reacting too late. In recent history, we have a very good pecking order of knowing when to get into action on things. Doing it later is definitely not always better, and doing it with assistance is very important. If we have another year that many people in this room would like us to take, we won't have that assistance. That's one thing that I want to put right out there. We'll be coming up with $30 million and figuring out on our own what type of road we want to build. This was negotiated. This was worked on for a very long period of time to work for the betterment of the people that live there and for the whole county. Now, the idea that you can work on a project of this size with a 40-person committee is never been proven. It does not work. That's why you hire engineers. That's why you have, as the gentleman said at our meeting on Thursday, a license to do this. I've been drawing plans for a living for over 40 years, not highways. When I look at their plans, I can have a pretty good understanding, probably better than most people. But to have 35 and 40 people in a meeting with these engineers saying this is how we want it, this is how, That's what these public hearings have been for. And a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I said, you know, I have some real concerns about this Foxconn thing. Yeah, I have, since the beginning of it, had concerns about the Foxconn thing. I don't have concerns about my job, what I need to do for Kenosha County. I'm not going to be putting Kenosha County looking down the barrel of a gun in a year and a half, and we haven't done anything. My job is to have a response to everything that happens around us. And we did not bring the Foxconn project to where it is. We need to respond to it, though, and we can't sit back for another year and take our time. Now, last thing I'm going to say is 2 weeks ago at our meeting, if anybody that was here, remember I brought 2 speed limit reductions to this county board on highways that have long been a different speed limit. And I've done it repeatedly as chairman of Public Works. And I can't remember if it was Super Rose that said it or not, but they were right. You have to build the road first. Clement will tell you, Mr. Arbor will tell you, the men from DOT will tell you, you can't do the traffic study. I've been quiet about the speed limit thing at every meeting I've been at. But that would be the least of my worries if I was anybody here in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. I'm going to clear the board right now. Is there any other discussion in regards to the resolution before us? Seeing none, we are going to take a vote on this. A roll call has been requested. Yes, if you're for the resolution. No, if you are not. Supervisor Franco?
14-7.
Resolution passes 14-7. Moving on.
Approval of the April 3rd, 2019 Committee of the Whole and regular County Board minutes by Supervisor Nordigan.
Supervisor Nordigan, you have the floor.
Move the approval of this.
I have a motion by Supervisor Nordigan, a second by Supervisor Uhas. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So, can I have a motion to adjourn Sindai? I have a motion by Supervisor Nudo to adjourn Sindai, and a second by Supervisor Rodriguez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned Sindai. We will take 5 minutes and start the next meeting.
Mark's going to the bathroom.